Perfect. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Sorry, I did talk to Peter and he understands. And for anybody that wasn't part of that, we had no host. There was nobody to let us in. I don't know if it gets stuck at the town hall. They were very helpful in giving us a second link, but didn't make anybody a host. So there was nobody to let us in. So we will adjourn the executive session until next time. There was nothing crucial. I can give you sort of general update under additional business, but there was actually nothing that needed a vote today. So we're back in public session. So we will go immediately with apologies for the delay to number 2 on the agenda, and that is notice of intent, 1034 Blue Hill Avenue. And I think that's Ann, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. And maybe waiting for us to come back into public session. Because this is our mess up, so and we'll give her some time. And if she's still trying to catch up, I see her. There you are. Good.
There we
Perfect.
go.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome. And sorry for the delay.
That's okay.
So please tell us what you'd like to do. And
So, my name's Ann. I live at 1034 Blue Hill Ave. I've lived here for about 25, 30 years. And I basically just want to do a small addition. My parents are getting older. They spend a lot of time here, and it's just too small. And I keep them here mostly for like safety reasons, bad weather, things like that. And it's just really too tight. I also work at home like 3 or 4 days a week.
Okay. We've got the notice of intent. I talked with Steve about this. We've got some concerns with what we've received by way of the map. We don't have a stamped plan from you from an engineer. So we really don't have anything to approve.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I have that.
Because we've got a draft without a professional engineer's stamp on it. And we won't do anything to delay you necessarily, but we don't have anything to approve or disapprove until we have
Okay,
the plan from the engineer. And one of the things that we do anyway, maybe we can kind of work in parallel here. We do a site inspection to just approve the lines.
okay.
And the lines would be the wetland delineation.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to go back through your plan. I did it before and talked to Steve about this. Who was the person that flagged the wetlands on the top of bank? I may have asked a technical question.
I have no idea what you're talking about yet.
All right. So there are wetlands. So we need to know the distance from the wetlands.
Okay, so I'll get in touch with him and have that dropped off. I don't know why you don't have one.
Okay, well, we've got the draft plan.
Yeah,
What I'm trying to figure out is where are the wetlands and the distance from that gives us
okay,
jurisdiction. So if you can get a professional engineer to stamp the plan and say this is what we propose,
okay.
and then we've got to go out and look at the wetland lines there.
Yeah,
John, you don't have the plot plan for building permit? That was in my packet.
It should have been in your packet too, John.
I'm sorry, which one of you guys? I may have a larger one here. Hang on a second.
Yeah,
It looks like
it's very big, John.
stamped
Yeah,
by
what I've got this one here.
Anderson Surveyors.
yeah.
Steve, Tom
Yeah.
Harmon needs to be readmitted.
Thank you.
Oh, so this is stamped by that. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
At least
All
I
right. So Steve and I were both looking at the wrong plan, and both of us had this, but we were looking at the draft. So this is stamped. It is beyond So all we need to do then is to approve the lines that have been signified here, and these were done by flags were done by whom? I'm looking at the plan notes. And I've got, I guess it's top of bank. I'm not, it's Balster Brook. And that is, I know we've had some controversy over that, but it is dark line on the GIS, so it's presumptively a perennial stream. But I see the markings here, 25-foot non-disturbance zone. There's a garage there that's already, but I'm sure it was there before our.
Oh, it was there, yeah.
I got that, but somebody's taking measurements from the wetland flags or top of banks, and that's really what we have to confirm, because if you're asking for approval of the plan,
Okay.
we should go out and take a look at it, which won't delay it much. But let's get all the questions out of the way first, and then we can set up a date to come out and visit your home. Questions from commissioners?
I have a question, John, regarding that. And you say that you're putting an addition on. Are you putting it on? Are you going vertical, or are you going on the outside of the existing dwelling?
Outside of the existing dwelling, on the driveway, kind of.
But it is
Okay.
attached, correct?
Say that again?
It is attached.
Oh, yeah.
Is it on the same one story, or are you going up over the?
It's on the same
Okay.
one story.
Okay.
No.
I
That
don't,
answers
I
the
don't
question.
get where the driveway will go when the addition goes over it.
Well, there's already a driveway there, and it would just, I guess, if you can tell, it's kind of wide. It would just go a little further so that cars can fit. I probably can't access the garage.
I'm looking at the
Yeah.
plan that shows existing and proposed conditions. And it looks like the proposed addition covers up all but a little slice of the driveway on the plan.
I would have to talk to the architect that did that. But I have a feeling it's not gonna go behind. I won't be able to access my garage with a car. So it's gonna be like more of a shed or something.
I see. Well, there's a paved area between the house and the garage. There will no longer be vehicles going there. Is that correct?
Well, there's still driveway. Probably not.
Mr. Chairman, might we not be able to be helpful to Ann if we have a site visit?
Yeah, that's what I suggested, Arthur.
Yeah, I heard
I was
you
just
on
asking
that.
for, questions before we set up a date for it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we won't be better positioned to ask the questions and have responses from her and from whomever she needs to have with her on site. We need flags.
I'm sorry?
We need flags.
Yeah, probably, but I can't figure out where who set the line. It's probably just top of bank. I don't know if there are any wetlands there. I see the measurements, the 25-foot non-disturbance zone.
Right.
Yeah, that's on the plan, but the wetland line is not.
Correct. So I'm just, it looks like, and that's what we don't know. We don't know if that was just a top of bank issue.
Correct.
What do you mean you need flags?
Well, there are two different resource areas that we're talking about. Bordering vegetated wetlands is really an analysis done on both soils and foliage.
Yeah.
And then we also have a stream here, and sometimes that resource area is defined by top of bank. It's just
Okay.
where the channel ends. And sometimes it's a combination, but we can't tell here. I know that somebody took a measurement because the plan says there's a 25-foot non-disturbance zone, and there's a 50-foot offset line, and there's a 100-foot offset line, which
Mhm.
is jurisdictional, but we don't know exactly where it's coming from. That's
Okay.
what's the starting point.
Top of bank means,
It's probably top of bank, but we don't
Okay.
know. So we don't know if there are any wetlands adjoining Balster Brook that would extend it out a little bit further.
okay,
It looks like, you'll be out of the 25-foot, which is, we're pretty strict on adherence to that. And your garage appears to be there
You're saying-
longer
yeah, it's on
than our
top of-
bylaw.
yeah.
I got it. So we just need to figure out where you're measuring from. Somebody's measuring it, so I didn't know if you had a wetland scientist come up with the location of the brook and or bordering vegetated wetlands. Or I don't know where your engineer, Anderson Surveys, I don't know what they used as a starting point. I can guess, but I don't know.
Okay, so I can get in touch with him and find out.
Yeah, correct. But I think, when you're talking to him, it is odd to look at the plan, because if your garage is in the back and you're basically blocking off 95% of the driveway, you've got about 10% or less to the left of the proposed addition. And I don't know if in reality you're planning to just kind of move the driveway around the side of the addition to get back to your garage. And it's a fair question I think Tom poses, because if the back area is all paved anyway,
It is.
I don't know what your plan is, but if I were doing it, I'd probably try to move the driveway to the left of the proposed addition.
Right.
But the plan's got to accurately
Okay.
show them. All right.
Yeah, no problem.
So if you could just have either the architect or the Anderson surveyors address that issue, and if your plan is to have the driveway go around the house,
Yeah,
then it needs to be reflected here. And then we need
Okay.
to know where the wetland is measured from, the resource area is measured from. If it's Balster Brook, fine. But we need to know where the measurement has been taken from.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Any other thoughts or questions before we
No,
schedule a visit?
No. So do you want this information when you come for a visit, or do you want me to drop this information off before?
Well, it would be helpful to us if we had it
Okay,
when we were there. So maybe the question is, how fast do you think you can get that? And you may not know that. You may say, I don't know, I have to call the guy and ask him.
yeah. I would do at least 2 weeks. I don't know. Could be tomorrow, but I don't know.
All right. So we
Or
can
I
kick
can
it out a
call,
couple
or I
weeks.
can send an email if it's sooner and set up from there.
Oh, yeah, sure. That's fine. But why don't we just make a practical solution here? Kick it out at least 2 weeks before we visit your site. We usually go on a Saturday morning.
Okay,
So if we go, we could go 3 Saturdays. I don't know if you had any kind of a contractor lined up who wants to, start.
no, that,
It was still in the planning stage.
yeah, it's still in the planning stage, so yeah, no. So 3 weeks is fine. And I'll make sure you have everything before then.
That would be perfect.
Is that
All right.
okay?
Yep, that's okay with us.
Okay, so
But
what?
I said that without asking if people can make it. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
No,
Phil,
no, I-
That would be the
What's the-
3
29th,
weeks is
John.
April 5th.
April
Say-
5th?
3 weeks, yes.
3 weeks?
Wait a minute. Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. All right, so let me just go through. Steve, can you make April 5?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, Philip, you around?
Yes.
Wendy?
Um, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so.
Okay, Hans?
I think so, yeah.
All right, Arthur?
Yes.
Charlie?
Should be able to.
Ingrid?
Yes, I can make it.
All right, Tom?
What is the date again?
April
What's
5.
the date?
April 5?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay, that's good. But before we actually uh, put a stamp of approval on it, Bob, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the project, but I think you're probably very familiar with the area. I believe that's the other side of the brook from that large home that was vacant for quite some time,
Yeah,
and yeah, and then there was also a
Well, that wasn't that Mr. Vo? Are you next to
Sabri,
No, no, that's the one on the Canton Ave side.
right, Can't Ave
Right.
side, and then to the north of this site there was another one that you had done.
Right, that was
Yeah.
Mr. Vo with the sports court.
yeah,
Next
he's my
right.
neighbor.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
That's your neighbor.
should be familiar with the area. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's good.
good man.
And actually, I think Mr. Vo had some wetlands adjoining it wasn't much, but it was outside the top of bank. Well, it wasn't an issue, but he had to move his sports court.
That's
So they
correct.
so they must have shown that it was an intermittent stream versus a perennial stream.
No, they didn't. And the reason they didn't, Bob, is because it really doesn't matter a whole lot whether it's 100 feet or 200 feet, because it's within our jurisdiction anyway.
Gotcha. All right.
We're hung up on the 25-foot part of it, not the 100 to 200.
All right.
And that's why we try to resolve these and work cooperatively with the homeowners so that the 100 feet, 200 feet usually doesn't trigger unless it's a 1996 a lot that was approved or not approved before that period of time. Generally,
Sure.
it
Yep.
really doesn't matter to us. All right, so April 5, Ann, that's good
Yeah,
with you?
no problem. Yeah,
We'll
what
be
time?
we'll be at your house at 8:30.
Okay,
Okay, Wendy? All right? You don't want six, okay.
What is it? Oh, 10:34? 10:34?
yeah,
All right. We'll see you on April 5, Saturday morning, 8:30 a.m. Okay?
no problem. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you very
Yeah,
much for
have a good night.
waiting for us tonight.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, thanks. Okay, next on the agenda is certificate of compliance at 1250 Randolph Avenue. And Bob, you can start, but one of the things that we don't have, it's probably in our file, but the commission members don't have it. We've got the original order of conditions from.
That should be in your packet.
Yeah, that's what I said, Philip. We
Oh,
have
sorry.
the original order of conditions. We do not have the reference in the special conditions to the revised mitigation plan. And the problem is we don't have an as-built. We've got the 2009 plan. But Bob, you've indicated that there are at least 3 variances. And we don't know whether or not it impacts the amount of non-disturbance zone. I think the plan shows, the proposed plan, not the as-built, but the proposed plan shows 40 square feet, which is not much, of non-disturbance zone, and a mitigation of I think 175 square feet. But we don't have the mitigation plan, and we don't have an as-built to show it. Yeah, we know there's a fire pit that wasn't approved, or some portion of the patio, whatever's in your letter. But we don't know, and I can't read from the proposed plan of 2009 whether or not the fire pit and the increased patio went into the non-disturbance zone. I don't know where it is. So 2 things: can we get an as-built from you, and then can we set it up for April 5 to take a look at it?
Well, I'm sure we can set it up for April 5. The major differences between the proposed and the existing was essentially on the patio area that was approved. So, as I mentioned in the letter, I will attempt to get that before the April 5th meeting. But I think the one of the major things might have been the assessment of the plantings that were there. I wasn't able to get a plant person out there to verify that, so I'll attempt to do that for the April 5th meeting.
Okay, that would be great. And Philip, if you can find in the file the revised mitigation plan, because
Sure.
that was not attached, I don't think, to the original order of conditions. It's referenced there, but it's not included in.
Yeah, I don't believe I saw that. I wasn't given that, but we'll take care of it.
Okay. All right. So, and you'll get us an as-built, so that'll show us where the fire pit and masonry sitting area that were added. We just don't know where they were added.
It was all in the area with the pavement. So, I mean, I didn't believe it was any kind of a impact on. It was just shuffling the shed to a different location and the fire pit instead of a. Anyway, I'll get you an as-built.
Perfect. All right. That's
Could I
fine.
make a comment?
Yeah, of course.
I'm looking at this plan that we got in the package, United Consultants from March 2009.
Yes.
And if you look at the first drawing up at the top of the page, it shows something on the upper right going around the corner of the lot called the swale. And that's not flagged. And I just point out that on the town's own GIS, that swale is shown as a stream. I don't know who drew it in there. I haven't been there myself, but that is right at the edge of, it looks like, the pool deck. So I think that's a question in my mind, is how's the water now getting through that corner? Something I wouldn't be able to, comment further on unless I actually saw it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But although as bizarre as it may sound, I do remember being there in 2009. So, so I'm sure that would have been evident. But that's one of the reasons for my concern with the changes. We had to have been aware of it in 2009. I don't know if Don Neal was there or not, because he left, I think, at the end of 2008, early 2009. But you know how sensitive and appropriate he was at paying attention to stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons why I'm looking to see what the changes are. See whether or not the variances from the approved plan have any impact on the resources that we protect, as you just pointed out. So I think that's a good reason for a plan. I mean, for an inspection. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? All right, seeing none. And I don't know, I should always ask this. Are there any members of the public or butters or not that have a question or comment? See none. So we'll continue this until April 5 and 9:30, 9:15, maybe 9:15, Bob. How's that?
Fine. Okay.
Okay, good. All right, good. Thank you very much. We'll see you on April 5.
Good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is request for determination of applicability, 94 Parkwood Drive. And I think, Mr. Mackey, you're on, sir.
Yes, I'm here. And nice to be with you, Commission. Thank you. So essentially, there's an existing in-ground pool at the property. It was built in, I think, the early 80s, and it's no longer working. So we've just got plans here to renovate the pool deck area and fix the pool. So there was a wetland delineation done recently by Pinebrook Consulting, just outlining what I've had my hardscape designer do is take the pool project and overlay it onto an existing site plan that was done by George Collins Engineering, when we first bought the house and the septic system was installed. So yeah, essentially just trying to replace the pool deck area, fix the pool. No changes to the footprint. Appears to be, the pool is actually raised up quite a bit over the existing grade, and doesn't seem to impact the 25-foot area, if I understand correctly.
All right. Quick reaction to this is that I'm looking at the plan with the wetlands delineation, and I understand that was 2018.
That's correct.
All right, so we do have a 3-year lifespan for wetlands delineations, and I see that the resource area was, I don't know, was it looked at more recently in 12/16/24, but I don't see those on a plan. I'm looking at a sketch, and I'm wondering, can you tell me who inspected who did the wetlands view in December of 24, and can they put these flags in and put a plan together for us?
So yes, I suppose this is a bit confusing. So the existing site plan, the wetland line is essentially unchanged from when that site plan was done back in 2018. And so I hired Pine Brook Consulting, Brooke Monroe, to flag the area and essentially confirm that the locations of the flags and the wetland boundary are the same as they were back at that time. So I can share, I know I provided a site plan with the wetland flagging and the wetland and upland boundaries. It's probably very, very small for you all to see on the piece of paper I did submit. I'm happy to share it so you can take a closer look at it on the meeting here, but essentially confirming the same wetland line that was done back in 2018.
Is that, I don't know if you can see that. Is that this one that says?
Exactly, yes, John.
But that is the Collins Engineering 2018 plan that was done for your septic system.
That's right. And so again, with the pool was there at that time. And
right.
So my thought being, if I need to get another certified plan for the plot, I can. But I didn't think that was necessary just based on the fact we weren't changing anything in the existing footprint. The pool was there at that time. The wetland line is essentially the same. So trying to save myself the cost and time.
All right, I understand that, but I think we've and I don't mean to sound like we're form over substance here, but as I understand it, Steve Ibis was out there looking at the site in October of 24, and he suggested that you file a notice of intent. And at that time, I guess your next door neighbor was talking about doing the same thing. So we're expecting to get a notice of intent from them. So we want to make sure that we dot I's and cross T's and treat you the same way that we treat them.
Sure.
So I think you do need to come in with a certified plan as to where the line is. And if Brooks Monroe has already been there, it shouldn't be costly. She's already flagged it. You just have to, put those onto the plan. So it's probably going to look very similar to the George Collins from 7 years ago. But that is a requirement that after 3 years, we need a new plan.
Yeah.
The other question I've got is that on the sketch that we've got, I see the patio pool area, but I don't see a structure in back of that. And I'm looking at the George Collins plan, and it's got like a square above, as I'm looking at the piece of paper, it's above the pool patio area. Is that just missing from the sketch, or is that gone now, or?
I had only, again, not really knowing what I needed here. When I spoke to Steve at the site, we sort of exchanged that this may only need a determination of applicability and not a full notice of intent. So I didn't pursue, an engineering plan for the same, right? Just intended to use the existing AutoCAD drawing that my hardscape designer was able to use and update it with essentially the pool project, right? So didn't think I was in need of a notice of intent based on the scope of the work and the fact that we're not changing the existing conditions, the footprint, the pool shed, all of that is existing structure. Why it's not in Brooke's drawing, I'm not sure. I think she was just doing the delineation of the line, right, of the upland and wetland area. So she's done the flagging, but she doesn't have the ability to do a site plan.
All right. It shouldn't be a great expense because we're pretty sensitive to not putting homeowners through unnecessary expense, but we do need an updated wetlands delineation, and 2018 doesn't work. Sounds like the bulk of your expense has already been incurred by having Brooks go out there and do it. So now it's just a question of getting it put onto some CAD drawing. And because of the fact that we do anticipate a notice of intent coming in from your neighbor, who will be changing a foot, I guess, is going to ask to put in a pool there, which would certainly require a notice of intent. I appreciate what you just said about you staying within the same footprint and basically doing repairs. But it would help us be consistent and uniform in our application of the rules and regs. If you could get us that plan, we can take a look at it and when we are asked to approve delineations, we try to get out there and see it, eyeball it, and say, yep, you're right. So I don't expect any difficulty, any problems. But what I suggest, if you can get us that CAD drawing plan by April 5th, we can stop by and see it, and it's not going to take long. And I don't know. I don't anticipate any problems. That maybe some of the other commissioners do, or they have another comment or question. But that would help us in our quest to be uniform and to treat all applications equally.
Yeah, I'll mention, I don't know what their plans are and their timeline for the plans. We're on separate properties and separate schedules. I have been working on this design plan and conceptual renovation for quite some time. And I guess it's difficult for me to know what the exact requirements are. So I don't know what the cost of a new engineering plan would be to confirm the same. Again, I think the intent was hire the wetland delineator to flag the exact same locations that have been unchanged since 2018. So not trying to skip any steps, but certainly if there is additional time and additional money involved in hiring another engineer to take those flag locations and plot them out and stamp it. I would assume. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what the cost, and I'm not pushing George Collins at all, but he's already got the plan. So
Yeah.
The GPS stuff can be, I just transfer it, I think, from Brooks Monroe to, if somebody had to come out and start all over again, it would be an increased cost. And again, I like George Collins, but I'm not pushing it at all. But he's already got it.
Right, which is what he provided to me, John. So he gave me the AutoCAD drawing. My hardscape designer took that and put the flag locations on that along with the pool project. So that was the intent. It was just leveraging existing work that really hasn't changed. But I understand if that's not acceptable, certainly can go back to. I don't think George has the capacity to take on this work, at least from my interaction with him, anytime soon. I do have the AutoCAD drawing. So again, I was hoping that I could use the existing drawing, the new wetland, the confirmation of that line to avoid additional work or additional hires. But I understand if that's not possible here.
Is just real quick question there. Your hardscape designer, are they a landscape architect?
The landscape architect is actually a family member of mine, King Landscape Design, and he has a hardscaper that he works with. So they're not the same. The designer is not the same as the hardscaper, if that helps.
So we would accept a stamp from a landscape architect. So if the landscape architect's willing to stamp the plan, it's an easier step.
Okay. I'm not sure if that's within his capability. Are there requirements for him to do that? The design came from my hardscape designer, which is King Landscaping and Design. I don't have the ability to do AutoCAD, so this is not my handiwork, if that is one of the concerns.
Yeah, no, I was just offering a different alternative.
Okay.
Yeah, Hans, on that note, all the AutoCAD work is already done here.
Yeah,
And
it's just someone putting a border on it and
somebody putting a stamp on it.
yeah.
As long as they can verify the wetland flags that are out there, it's really just getting this drawing stamped.
Yeah.
So that's all that's needed is a
That's
stamp
how I
on.
see it, John.
Okay.
Based on AutoCAD work that I see done on this drawing, everything is here. It would make sense.
I agree.
So that Foster doesn't have to incur much additional cost, is to whoever he can get to stamp this drawing. They just have to verify the wetland flags are where they are, and they could probably stamp this drawing because all of the CAD work is already done.
Yeah, the other piece I would just suggest is maybe get a note from the person that did the delineation to either have them modify that letter to say that the flags are consistent with the previous delineation.
So the delineation was recently done. So I understand those expire. And so had Brooke come back out recently, essentially to reconfirm this plan that I had from 2018. So it should be consistent. I think that's certainly possible. My only concern was finding someone who could do that work rather quickly. It's less about the cost and more about the timing of having someone come out. Sorry, I'm looking at the plan over here on my other screen. So, and just ensure that where those flags are line up with the on a plot, a certified plot. So I don't know how long that's going to take. George didn't seem like it was something he could do anytime soon.
Can I ask, we're looking at a septic system on this plan, and that's already installed, correct?
That's correct, Thomas. This is the plan from 2018. The septic was replaced just before
I see. That was confusing to me because the plan is dated 24, and I thought it was a plan to install a septic system.
Yes, sorry if that's confusing. Yeah, it, again, was trying to show the existing conditions and not do a brand new site plan for essentially the same AutoCAD drawing with the same wetland line.
Okay, and I agree with somebody, maybe it was you, who said it's sort of hard to tell what the project is by looking at the plan, and hence a verbal description would be useful. I wonder, given that this was permitted some years ago, did you ever have the need to get a certificate of compliance for the work?
For the septic work we did,
Yeah.
I've only owned this house for about 8 years, so I don't know anything prior to that. Like in terms of when the pool was installed, I wasn't involved. That was the previous homeowner, so I'm not sure what they had to do. As I mentioned, it's built up quite a bit from the natural grade, so it's almost like an above ground pool that's it's in ground, but it's been the surrounding area has been built up to support the pool at a higher elevation.
Okay, thank you.
Well, do you think you can get this, put onto hopefully the existing CAD drawing from Collins, and just getting those two to talk, George Collins and Brooks Monroe, it doesn't sound like it's a time-consuming.
I can certainly ask John again when I reached out to George Collins to get the existing AutoCAD drawing. He was asking a bunch of questions about who's going to attend the meetings, who's going to present to the commission, and it didn't seem like he had the capacity to take that on in the timeline that I was trying to work within. But again, understand if that's what's required, I can certainly I'll have to find a new engineer, I think, to do the to provide the stamp, I think, if I'm understanding the requirement here.
We do need the stamp, and we do need an update on the wetlands delineation, but we don't need the engineer to come and talk to us. So we can figure it out. If we go out there, we've got the stamped plan, and we can eyeball, whether or not, I think you just heard us talking about the difference between, the top of bank and sometimes the surrounding wetland areas that'll, vary the starting point, so to speak. That's why we need to get out there and just look at where the flags are. But we don't need George Collins there or any other engineer. I mean,
Well,
if we've got
I
the
think
stamp plan, we can see it.
I think that the sticking point is the stamp, right? I don't know if my hardscaper can provide a stamped plan. So the thought here was to try to give the commission the the existing conditions without a stamp. But if that's required, then I understand that's what I'll need to get. It's probably going to take me longer than I wanted, but understand that if that's what I've got to do, that's what I've got to do. Was not planning, again, just based on the meeting with Steve at the property, that a notice of intent would likely not be required. If it is, I guess I'd like to know that too, just so that I can understand my next steps. That's been one of the things that I'd like to get out of this meeting is what do I need? If it's a certified stamped plan, understand. From there, I'd like to know if I do need notice of intent or prepare for other events like that.
Well, if you're staying within the footprint, my gut reaction is that an RDA is maybe sufficient. If I had been at the meeting in October, I probably would have said, if you're operating, within the jurisdiction, a notice of intent it's a little bit more formal. It probably costs $100 more. It doesn't change the notification. The RDA still have to give notification to the abutters. There's not a whole lot of difference. The RDA is generally faster. But I mean, I'm comfortable leaving it as an RDA as long as we have a stamped plan, and
I
we
understand.
verify the lines.
As I mentioned, the lines were just done, so the flags are still there. There's no change there, and the existing plan that George had done lines up with those flags. So if I just need to show that in a stamped plan,
yes,
then I understand.
And from the time perspective, you've heard, I think so far tonight, we've got two site visits on April 5. We can do it April 5. That is a public meeting, and we can vote there because it is a public meeting.
Sure. Okay.
So we're trying not to slow you down.
No, I appreciate that. And again, this is not something I typically do. So just trying to understand my steps and what I need to provide to ensure I'm in compliance and good standing here with the commission. So.
All right. And again, I spoke from my personal perspective. I'm not, speaking on behalf of the Conservation Commission necessarily. Does anybody believe it should be or needs to be a notice of intent as opposed to an RDA? My view was based upon the fact that he's not going outside the existing footprint. But if anybody feels differently, then please speak up. Charlie, your hand is raised. I don't know if you know that.
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, strangely enough. Nope.
Oh, you know what it is? It's my cursor. It changes to a hand. I put it over something. I'm sorry.
I would say, well, then my hand wasn't up. What I would say is that I would think a RDA would be sufficient. He's staying within the footprint of what's already there. He's just replacing the hardscaping in kind. I don't think a notice of intent is necessary in this situation.
And
Anybody
Mr.
else?
Chairman, this is
Yes, sir.
Steve Ibis. I would agree with Charlie, and I'd like to note that Mr. Collins and Brooke Monroe work together very well. So, they talk a lot. So, you may have a chance to have that moved very much sooner than you would expect.
I will certainly ask and appreciate that tip, Steve. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good. So let's set it up for a visit, and it's probably going to be 10 o'clock or so at your house on
April 5?
Saturday morning, the 5th, April 5. Right. And it would be very, very helpful to us if we could get that plan before the 5th of April.
All right. I will I'll certainly contact Collins Engineering and see if they can just update this based on what Brooke has done.
Perfect. That's good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your courtesy and patience with us.
Of course, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Have a good evening.
To you too. Next on the agenda is new business. And I've got three things to discuss. The first one is, and this is just informational, and I think you already know it all, that we did receive the superseding order from DEP on March 4th. And that's important because the issuance date is the 4th of March. And the DEP issued a superseding order approving the project for the Lower Guile Road field, the artificial turf. On the last page of that superseding order, it lays out the appellate rights of anybody in opposition, and they have 10 business days from the issuance date. And by my count, that is, the appeal could be filed up until and including the 18th of March, 2025, which is Saturday.
It's Tuesday,
Tuesday.
What is it?
18th.
No, I'm sorry. When I said it's Tuesday, right? I'm sorry. So we haven't heard from them, and that's just informational. Everybody's been notified. The town administrator's been notified. Kevin Grissom from the park department has been notified. And as I understand it, their funding is still in place to do this. But they have to wait, or they should wait until the passage of the appellate time. And if it's appealed, we'll address it. They'll address that. That was number one. Number two, and this is not in order of importance at all, but on last Saturday, Arthur and I had the privilege and opportunity to go to the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions. And it was pretty interesting. I know most of you have been many times, probably not as many as I have, but it was interesting. And the ones that the subject matter that I was most interested in is the open space, no net loss, the public property being, in a change of use. And we've all gone through that most recently with the Guile Road exchange of the 2.8 acres. So that was, as a matter of fact, Milton was actually mentioned in during the presentation. There were a number of other towns that were also mentioned. That it's not an unusual circumstance, but they went through the new regulations and guidances, and essentially they described what we've already gone through as to whether or not you need an appraisal of the land. And yes, the answer is yes. Whether or not there's a difference between fair market value and ecological value, and the answer is yes. Interesting to me, there is a component of the law now that says that you can actually have a financial alternative to be added to the land swap if that had happened. I don't know that it's been used, but it's actually built into the new system. But interesting, it was just sort of an update on the law, and there was a number of towns that were interested in it because they're all involved in the same thing that we were involved in, changing the use of land. And they actually did get into the change from passive recreation to active recreation. And you may recall that was an issue for us when we received the land at Pope's Pond, 41 acres. At the town meeting, one of the issues, and it was presented in the article, that there'd be a set aside of up to 4 acres for the park department. Because if we received it and held it for conservation, it would appear to be passive recreation. If it was then transferred to the park department for active recreation, meaning the playground at Beverly Park, then that could in fact trigger another 97 exchange. So these were all of the issues that were addressed. There was no conclusion, that there's no epiphany at the end of it, but it was just sort of an open discussion about what the towns are going through and the role of EOEEA in recommending that the legislature, either accept or not accept the land transfer. So it was just kind of an update, but it would be certainly familiar to all of you because we went through it. The next issue I'm going to kick over to Arthur because there was a lot of talk about the marsh restoration, the salt marsh restoration. Arthur can probably address that, and then I'll finish. In fact, I'll finish before Arthur starts, and that is, I did go to one on beavers, because we had the beaver problem. We have the beaver problem, and a lot of other towns, to my surprise, have the same problem. And everybody addressed the fact that the state does not allow you to trap and transfer beavers. You have to euthanize them. And that was a concern to our own public health, the Board of Public Health, because you've got to get the permit from them. And the question is also, do you have to get a permit from us because you're changing the dam? Or you may be, taking down a dam and you're altering, the flow of the hydrological mechanism of the area. So it was a very interesting discussion. And the bottom line to it was, and they were very transparent about this. There were two presenters on beavers, and they own a company together. They said, listen, we sell these, beaver decoys, and there are different mechanisms to fence the area to prevent the beavers from getting in. They're really clever in terms of getting around some of the fences, but they have pipes that will actually siphon the water over the top of the dam that the beavers build. There are, mechanical, mechanisms to fool the beavers. It was very interesting. But I walked away with the feeling that we're not alone in addressing this problem, and it's I wouldn't say it's all over the state, but it's not just Milton anyway. But there are business ways to get around, and they're not that expensive. Some of the pipes going over the fence to bypass the beaver dam, we're talking $3,000 or $4,000. They're not cost prohibitive. So anyway, that was it, and let me kick it back to Arthur. Marshland restoration. Arthur, you're on mute.
We have some family here tonight, so I wanted to spare you that. It's a daughter's birthday.
Oh,
you can come by later to see if there are any cupcake crumbs left. They had several sessions on salt marsh and wetland restoration, relating the two of them. A session on following up on those on regional coastal resilience, and a session on the impact of the new climate bill on wetlands and conservation commissions in general, and what new regulations might be coming down the line because of the new climate bill in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But wetlands and coastal wetlands in particular are receiving a considerable amount of priority in the Commonwealth. And this evening I was down at the Neponset River Watershed Association's meeting at the restaurant in the Lower Mills, where they had about a 2.5-hour reception just to touch bases with Sean McGinty and follow up to a message that I left him about a $10 million FY26 CZN coastal zone management funding that's available, and to see whether or not we might be able to be packaged in it. And this is something that we have to explore relative to the MBTA situation for the town of Milton, and this possibility that they could file for a number of communities as a nonprofit and be anonymous in the communities that might be involved. But we'll go down that road a little later on. Nevertheless, one of the reasons for the imperative on the wetlands is that the speed at which they absorb greenhouse gases is 10 times greater than the same area of a mature forest. So the state is encouraging communities like ours, where we have 33 such acres under our care now as of the last town meeting, to be developing ways of protecting that. We have an impediment in the town, and that is the Baker Dam. It has blocked a good deal of the sediment that would naturally come down the Neponset River and go into the marshland area, building up the marsh. So for well over a century, that hasn't been taking place. And there's no chance that that dam is going to be addressed until after the Superfund project is completed, that 3.7 mile stretch from Mother Brook down to the dam for the removal of toxic materials, PCBs, and so on down the line. They have gone from Mother Brook down to the Hollingsworth Dam, and now proceeding beyond that one. But it's going to be a good number of years. I would guess, John, it's something in the vicinity of 5 or 6 years before they clean out down to the Baker Dam.
I agree.
But the state is encouraging communities
Superfund work
collaboratively.
still funded?
I'm sorry, Hans?
Is that Superfund work still funded?
The Superfund is funded. It's federal funding.
Yeah, but Hans has got a different
That's my
question.
question.
In the last months, did they lose any funding?
Hmm.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you clearly. Not to my knowledge. I haven't heard anything to that effect. I think prior grants may be grandfathered. That's my hope, but we'll see what
Nope.
comes around the corner. No, Wendy says.
That, no guarantees. That's been my
Oh.
experience talking with other colleagues with
So it's a
with
crapshoot.
environmental grants. Yeah.
Sorry, Arthur, didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, no, you asked a good question, one that I hadn't thought of, and something that I'll pursue with the Neponset River Watershed Association, because they have the direct line of communication with the EPA on that Superfund grant. I won't spend too much more time on it, other than to say that the work that we've been doing in terms of the surveying of the marsh down there is going to be very instrumental in terms of our being able to collaborate with other organizations and communities on restoration and preservation of that marshland for not only climate-related purposes, but also recreational purposes in the town of Milton, and also to help control the foot traffic that we have on the marshland. I sent a couple of people, not everybody here, a mid-January photograph in the snow of the foot traffic from the end of Riverside Drive out to Black Rock. And you'd think it was the middle of the summer in terms of the amount of people, the numbers of people that had been using the trails out there. And I've been down and seen multiple groups of fishermen going out into the marsh and just walking willy-nilly all over the marshland, and the marsh can't take that much longer. It's not in the strongest shape. So we have to put in guidance and guidelines on where people go, how it can be preserved, and what it's for. So we're on track with that here in the town. That's a nutshell. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer them now or later.
We have one additional piece of new business, and that is, and this should probably require a vote. And it's not on the agenda for a vote, but enforcement orders can be issued at any time by any one of us, and then returned to the Conservation Commission for a confirmatory vote. But you'll recall that a month ago, we invited, and invite is the actual word. We invited representatives of the American Legion Post to come and talk to us about moving their equipment out of our jurisdiction. And there are two gentlemen that came down, and I think we addressed the issue and said, listen, you've been a good neighbor in Milton, and we value your presence and your contributions. And pursuant to that, we'd like to come with an agreement that you'll move the hydraulic equipment and trucking, the lot of equipment that was there parked in our jurisdiction. I know, Tom, you got some maps on the floodplain, and and Arthur and I were actually down there inspecting it, climbing over fences and rocks and boulders. And this is when we found what we call the road to nowhere. It goes from the Department of Transportation to Mass DOT, or used to be Mass Highway, that runs basically parallel to the expressway at that point, and it's parallel to Granite Avenue. And they just cut a road through through our jurisdiction, and they piled up the soil at the end of what they had excavated or smoothed off into a road, and they piled it up right at the edge of the wetland. So I don't really know what the flow characteristics are of the wetland at that point, but it's not going anywhere by this new dam that's been created at the end of uh, at the end of the road. Um, I take Granite Avenue every day to go to work, and I've been looking. Um, and unfortunately, the American Legion folks have not moved the equipment. I had asked, again, as a courtesy for Arthur, there was a good relationship with both the new commander of the post and I guess the assistant commander. Um, and they said, "Oh, you're right. You know, we're trying to find space for them, and we'll get it out by this weekend." But that was a week or so ago, if not more, a week and a half ago, I guess. And it's still there. Um, and so I think it's time to issue an enforcement order to give them some additional time, but not much, because it's been a month when they said they would move it. And we worked out a place that they could move it within their property. I know it's an income source for them, but I would like to issue the enforcement order to say that, we'll give you another 10 days to get them out of our jurisdiction. And after that, you'll face a fine of, as our bylaw says, up to $300 per day per violation. And each truck would be, or each excavator or backhoe that they've got there would be a separate violation. I'm not trying to play the hard guy, but they told us at a public meeting a month ago that they would move it. We talked about where they could move it, and the answer was you just move it on the Granite Avenue side of the parking area. And when I say side, if you use the cell tower as the midpoint, if you put the trucks and excavation equipment on the Granite Avenue side, you're out of our jurisdiction. But they haven't done it. They told us at a public meeting they would. They told Arthur that just give us a couple of more days. We're going to get it out of there. It's still there. I confess I did not go by there today, but I went by there yesterday. It's still there. So what I would like to do is issue the enforcement order to tell them we'll give you another 10 days. All I have to do is move it across the parking lot. And if you don't do that, then you'll face fines that, according to our bylaw, are up to $300 per day per violation. We don't have to calculate it out, but that's my view, and I'd like to make a motion that you approve such an enforcement order, and I do so make that motion.
I would second that, John.
All right, Tom, thank you. Any discussion on this? It's not draconian. And you'll remember when we revised our enforcement order regulation a couple of years ago, we decided to take, you have two approaches. One is like the invitation, say, please do this, and then to actually issue the enforcement order. And I think that we've been courteous to our good neighbors, and they've been courteous to us. They just haven't done what they said they would do. And I don't see any alternative other than just to say, oh, okay. To any other, views on this or discussion points or questions?
John, this is Steve Ibis.
Yeah.
I went out there on Sunday morning and added some flags, pink flags, pretty close to where I thought the wetlands were on the site. I think maybe there were 15 flags. My son assisted. I'm a little bit wobbly these days. So there are some flags which they could take and get a 100-foot tape and walk it back and put some, orange paint right on the tarmac and to keep everything out of that area. So I've made it easy for them.
Did you
Just
talk to
FYI.
anybody there?
Yes, I did. I sure did. And told them what I was doing and why.
All right. And Arthur, can you recite your conversations with Dan?
John, I have a February 24th communication in front of me from Heritage Hall saying the tenant had begun moving his equipment and that the large trailer that's also up against the area was planning to be removed. I have a couple of photos, and I don't know if you can see this, but this one shows a considerable amount of the equipment moved out of that corner, including the backhoes. Steve, could you see any backhoes up against the area to be flagged?
Not a one. Not a one. The backhoes were out of there
So
as of Sunday.
my sense, John, would be in view of this communication and these photographs. Here's another one that's I don't know if you can see this. It's a closer up, and I don't know if I forwarded it to you, but I will, and to the other commission members. Maybe something that we want to table for one until maybe our meeting on the 5th of April.
Arthur, I went by there yesterday and I saw a yellow armed, whether you call it a backhoe or a front end loader or something. It was there.
Yeah.
They had a backhoe. Where's there, John?
In between the cell tower. That's my point of reference, the cell tower, between that and the tree line, which is the edge of the parking lot. The tree line and the edge of the parking lot is the same.
Right, but
You go by there every day.
they were all over on the dirt, on the earth. Those excavators, the two excavators.
On the
Well,
dirt or the
asphalt.
macadam?
I'm sorry, they were off the macadam and they were on the earth near
No,
the fence.
no. I'm saying they were, whether it's macadam or dirt, it's on the wood line or the tree line side of the cell tower. And we were abundantly clear on February 11th at a public meeting that they would remove those. They agreed to it, to move it on the other side of the cell tower. That was the dividing line.
That I don't recall specifically, so I can't comment on it.
Well, we had a full discussion about the floodplain, and Tom Palmer, brought up his and showed the pictures, and that's how we arrived, because we didn't have flags at the time.
Tom, does that floodplain go to the toe of slope?
Does it go where?
Toe of slope. Does it go to the toe of slope?
I'll try to have another look at it right now.
Sure.
It's something I took off.
I put some flags.
What I did was,
Go ahead.
yeah, I just took it off the Mass GIS site where you can overlay the 100-year floodplain. That's all it was. And I'm doing it again now. And by the way, I think the selectmen are talking about voting on some new FEMA maps or something. Is that the case? Does anybody know that there have been an update of flood zones that is very recent?
I heard that was coming, but I haven't seen anything specifically on it.
Well, I guess we're still using the old ones. And here I am looking at it now. I'm sorry you're not looking at it. But what it is a area that comes from the north, namely up toward the Ponza Valley Yacht Club, crosses over to the west side of Granite Avenue and covers nearly the entire mass transportation lot. But it doesn't come up onto the lot of the Legion Post, except on its west side. and not onto the cleared area either. The west side that is treed. So the antenna itself and its enclosure is out of the floodplain, and the dirt area that's on the far side of the antenna from Granite Avenue that was just discussed, that is really runs to the edge of it. It looks like, as you say, toe of slope there is probably the border of the floodplain.
Right.
And I would say toe of slope is probably where you were putting your flags too.
Pretty much.
For the wetland there. Yeah, although that slope seems to be migrating into the wetland because
Yes.
all that heavy equipment parked back there tends to push it in. So,
Agreed.
yeah, that's as much as I know.
Okay.
Two
So
things.
we're consistent at least, Tom.
Yes.
So go back though to your flags. If you're consistent, measure 100 feet from the
Exactly.
flag. So where does that take you?
That takes you into the onto the tarmac.
Yes.
How far in, Steve? Because one of the things that we did say to them in the conversation was that when you return, they would be flagged, and then we would measure in from the new flags so that they would have an idea of what the proper area was where they could store their equipment.
The north side of that, by the tower, it's a lot closer in. The wetland line is a lot closer to the edge of the top of slope there. And then it comes around out to the west and then south to the toe of slope. So you can go there any day and take a look at the flags. They're bright pink.
Okay, so we could
sequentially.
conceivably go down there and spray paint on
Exactly.
the asphalt, as
That's
is
right.
done with surveying practices very commonly, so that they would know where they are specifically.
Yes, exactly. And the equipment is more close to the northern side than anywhere else right now. At least on Sunday it was, a couple of days ago. Okay. So if they got the equipment just moved south 100 feet, that would do a lot to the existing conditions out there.
John, you
It's the
think we can
northwest.
relay this to them and see whether or not they move quickly and then do the enforcement order, or do you want to go ahead?
Move quickly. They told us at a public meeting a month ago that they would move it, and they have not.
Well, they have moved equipment,
They're still in our jurisdiction.
and we promised them that we would flag it and recalibrate the jurisdiction for them.
All right.
Right.
So you want to put it back on us. I'll go with that. But I'm not happy about this, Arthur, because when somebody makes a representation to us and then they refuse to do it, they're starting behind the behind the curve.
I'm
So,
not disagreeing.
Steve,
I'm just trying to.
Can you go out and spray paint a 100-foot mark for it? And if you're there, you might tell them that it's not going to be 10 days. It's going to be a lot faster than that, because they're already 30 days out from their promise. So I'll withdraw my motion, and perhaps on Arthur's wiser approach to our good neighbors. But tell them to take the stick out of my eye. I don't like getting poked in it. And once that spray paint is there, I suggest that they move it.
I
They
couldn't
move
agree
that
more.
equipment out of there.
And Steve, do you have a time when you and I might be able to do that together?
Yes, but I'm sorry, not this week. It's just a really, really busy week. Early next week, perhaps.
But your flags are there, and I have a measuring tape, so I'll do some approximations.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all you need, I think.
Yeah, and I'll
Get yourself some orange
I'll get
paints.
to them tomorrow, John.
That's great, Arthur. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks. Thank
sorry
you.
about that, Arthur.
No, that's all right. Following this together.
And the flip side of the same coin is can you give us an update on talking to the folks at Mass DOT? Steve?
Oh, yes, I
And
spoke to
John, I will
Mr.
just tell them that an enforcement order is coming,
Good.
unless, without
There you
question.
go.
I have no
There you go.
equivocating there.
I spoke to Mr. Henry Webster, who is the new director, I guess, out there at that particular facility. He told me that his facility is responsible for picking up the sides of the road and snow plowing, etc., down 28 to the Randolph line, and then down Route 3 to the Hingham line. So that's a pretty good sized area. When we walked that road to nowhere, as you call it, um, there were two um, pieces of equipment, backhoes there, and I said, please move them as soon as possible. And he said he would. Um, and then we walked there, and there's a couple of trailers, storage trailers, some old AC units, but that road was put in before his time, which is only 2 years ago. The previous man who was director has passed away, and so he had other things properly positioned, in my opinion, with Jersey barriers around everything outside the wetland. But some things were very close, to, if not inside the wetland in that area. The majority of the material that was there were attachments for winter. Okay, as you may have seen yourselves.
We did.
Yeah, plow attachments. So I suggested to John that I have me go talk with Erica Larner and have a after the fact um, notice of intent done for that filled roadway. And then while we're talking about it, we will be able to meet some of the people who are doing permitting for the DOT and give them a sense of we're interested in having any hydraulic equipment out of there at the same time. And so we can have some discussions. But Mr. Webster was very happy to talk, and he was very transparent. He didn't try to say no, 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 that's not a problem. He never said, um, it's not our fault or anything. He took complete responsibility and said, we'll do what we need to do. So that was very happy. I was very happy to hear that.
Good for you, Steve.
Yeah, good. So will you make that a formal request that they file an after the fact notice of intent?
I will do that with Erica Larner, who is the permit director, I guess.
All right. And my concern is at the end of the road closest to the American Legion post, they did pile up the soil at the end, so it does look like a dam.
Yes.
The problem with that is that I think the water, but I don't know this, but I think the water is flowing northward, and
That's true, John.
it's going to act as a dam. I don't know where the water's going to go.
There's a ditch that's between 93 and this road to nowhere.
Yes.
And it goes about halfway past the DOT yard and then just forms a big pool. And you heard the guy from the Legion saying there's a roofed over hole in the ground there. And as I mentioned, I think that is the remains of a culvert going under 93 to the Neponset or Gulliver's Creek. And
Sure.
it looks like it's completely defunct. So I would say that that area may drain at this point, but it looks to me more likely that it floods rather than drains.
And it also looks to me like there are two pools up north of the transportation area.
Uh-huh.
If you look on the aerial very carefully, I believe there are two pools up there. Yeah. That's all. So we'll get that going, John.
Good, perfect.
they have a problem of their own about that puddle lapping out into their paved yard.
Yes,
It's sort of there most
he
of the
mentioned
time.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned that. Yep.
All right. Any
That
other?
is that's also the lot that where they put the Snowmageddon. Do you remember the pile of snow that was in that lot?
Indeed.
It was at least 4 stories high. It
Yeah.
was very impressive how high they piled that snow. And they needed all the room they had for that pile of snow. And that was in March of 2015.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So-
Any other thoughts or comments or questions? Sounds like we have a plan on the enforcement orders. Um, any other additional business?
I have some.
Yep, Phil?
Have we ever thought of electronic signatures? When I was a trustee at the library, we did electronic signatures rather than having everybody come in and, chasing people.
Yes. Hallelujah.
So what would happen is, so I'd send my signature in, say, I, Philip Driscoll, trustee, approve, blah, 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 and they would attach that to what was approved. That's something we can think about?
No, we can do it. I don't know how to do it. Do we need permission from town council or select board or what?
According to the lady at the library, it just sounds like the trustees decided amongst themselves to do it. It doesn't say anything about, town council, but I will speak to Jan again and see if we need to get town council involved.
All right, check that out because that would be a vote by acclaim.
Right.
Yes.
All right, so I'll check with Jan and see if town council needs to be involved and report next meeting.
All right, so and the next meeting will be April 5. It's a public meeting, so we can, if we need a vote, we could do it then.
Okay.
Yeah, and Phil, you might run this by the select board office.
Okay.
Good thought, Arthur.
Because we had, I think, electronic signatures that we used on some materials as well.
Yeah. Not that I don't want to see anybody, but it's quicker if I get an email than,
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I'll check with Jan and I'll check with the select board office to report back on April 5th.
All right. And actually, I should go back and check again with Peter Mello because periodically I've talked to town council about our continued use of Zoom for our meetings. And he said it's been extended a number of times, but I think the latest governor's order was going to expire sometime this spring. I'm not sure when.
It's this month. If you look at the cover sheet, end of March.
End of March.
It's on the cover sheet of this meeting. Where is it? Under agenda, through March 31st, 2025. So
Yeah.
that's how far the official permission goes, apparently.
Where are you reading on the agenda?
The fine print.
Just in the bottom half, John, the top of the bottom half?
Yeah. The bottom half, under agenda.
March 31, right? Okay.
The fine print, yeah. Between agenda and number 1.
All right. So we'll have to figure out very soon about whether or not we need to go back to in-person meetings. I don't know. Did anybody feel strongly one way or the other? The reason I like the hybrid is because to be honest with you, it's cheaper for most of the applicants. I mean, the big developers probably don't care. They've got enough money in the bank to, pay for their engineers and representatives. The problem for the homeowner is that if they pay them, they have to come in from another city or town, and they all bill portal to portal. So it does raise the money for the homeowner if they have an engineer or an attorney, and they don't all. But that's why I thought the hybrid was actually good for, just a, regular homeowner. But I'll do it whatever the law requires, obviously.
And this goes back to the point about checking with legal counsel because Kevin kept us up to date previously when he was town council
Yeah.
on whether or not this would be extended. And we want to find out from him or the town administrator's office whether or not the legislature has plans to extend it and if the governor would be willing to sign that. I think it's a great facilitation for everybody.
Agreed.
Hopefully it's going to be extended, but I haven't heard anything officially.
Yeah, well, I'll check with Nick Milano and Peter. But I mean, anybody have strong feelings one way or the other that we, should continue, do a hybrid, go back to in person?
There's good points on both sides, I think.
True.
And you can do a combination of the two.
Right, but the combination of the two would require that we
That's
all
right.
that we all show up in person.
Not all of us necessarily.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll check with both Peter and Nick Milano tomorrow.
Right.
See where we are. All right. Anything else for discussion? New business? Anything? Motion to adjourn, anybody?
Second.
Charlie, you got a second. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We're done. Thanks all. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you all.
Good night.